Welcome to the Resources and Costs session. This session will take you through the changes to the cost information as requested in your grant applications. We will take you through the application form on the new funding service, including the importance of adding your core team, the key differences around the Justification of Resources section, and how to enter the costs information. Our lead service designer, Damien, is going to walk us through this session today.
In the new UKRI funding service, there are some changes to the cost information that we request as part of your grant applications. When we were designing the new funding service, it was apparent that we were capturing a lot of information in the JES service that we don't need, either for assessment or to pay a grant if it was awarded. This results in effort for applicants and financial support in providing the information. It means unnecessary effort checking the information by research officers and here in UKRI. And it also places an increased burden on peer reviewers when conducting assessments. So our approach to capturing costs is changing when applying in the new UKRI funding service to ensure that we only ask for what we need when we need it. Today, I'm going to walk you through the process of providing your costs, as well as your justification of resources, and demonstrate the changes to how things were done in the JES service, which is gradually being superseded by our new funding service over the next year or so.
Adding core team members.
This is what the application form looks like on the new funding service. And there's a couple of areas that we're going to talk through today regarding resources and costs. There is indeed the resources and cost section at the bottom here, but we're also going to talk about adding your core team members because this affects the costs that you will add. So let's go in there first. You can see that this application I have started already, and I've started nominating the people that are going to be involved in this grant project if it's awarded. In this case, I've got a couple of individuals from different organizations. And so this affects the cost because one of the changes on the new service is that rather than a single organization providing all of the costs on behalf of any other organizations involved, we would like to see the cost information captured for each of the organizations involved. And so in this case, I've got a couple of organizations that I've nominated here. If I were to nominate 5 organizations here that would be involved in this project if it was awarded, then when we go to the costs screen, they will be reflected there. So let's go and have a look at that.
Adding costs.
So if I go now into the resources and cost section of the application, we can see that I haven't entered any costs yet. But we can see that we've got 2 organizations here that I need to add costs for because there were 2 organizations represented in the core team. Let's go ahead and add the cost for this dummy organization here called Zorg. And when you go into add the cost for this organization, there are 2 core areas, if you like. Firstly, we want to capture our staff costs. That's probably the most detailed cost area that you'll probably need to add here in the new funding service. And the other costs are some of the terms that you may or may not be familiar with around directly allocated costs, directly incurred costs, indirects, and exceptions. There is guidance here that can help explain what the difference of those is. So please read that so you understand it. First, let's go in and have a look at the staff costs.
Adding staff costs.
So I'll click on the Zorg staff here, and we can go ahead and add the costs for each of the individuals named for Zorg. In this case, there's 1, but if I had nominated other members of Zorg who are going to be involved in this grant proposal in my core team, then they would be listed here. So I'm going to go ahead here and add the details for Jane Doe. I can determine what cost category Jane will be allocated to. So I'm going to select directly allocated here. Again, there's information here that describes the differences. And I can enter a start date on the project. So let's say we're starting in December 2023, and the end date, maybe I'll be working on this for a year. So I'll put 2024 there. And then I can put my percentage of time that this individual will work on the project. This is useful mostly for assessment purposes. This gives assessors an idea of the contribution these people will be making to the project. And it's all based on FTE or full-time equivalent. That means that if someone's working 5 days a week on it, they would be 100%, or maybe half the time they're at 50%. So most people have other commitments and are not 100%. So we're going to put 50% here for Jane. And I can enter my full economic cost for Jane for the entire project in here. Now, it's very important that you work with your research officers or your financial experts within your organization to help you cost your proposal. And although the information that we're capturing here might be different than what you perhaps were used to when filling out a JES form, we would expect that you'd still go to the same length with your research office or your financial support people in your organization to help you cost your proposal. It's really just some of the information that we're asking you to supply to us might be a little bit different or a little bit reduced in complexity. And that's all the information we need on individuals here.
Adding unnamed staff members.
Now, there might be people working on your project that you haven't nominated in your core team, either because you haven't employed them yet, or because they are providing support that perhaps isn't core to your assessment purposes, or isn't going to make a huge contribution in terms of who these people are. And we can add unnamed staff members here. So if I perhaps have a technician that I wanted to add, I need to capture the cost for this technician, but I don't need to add them to the core team element and talk about their CV and all those types of things, but I still want to add their costs. So I'm going to say that this person is a lab technician, for example. They could be all kinds of roles. You can enter what you like in here. It's really just a label to ensure that you can identify who they are when you're looking at the cost form yourselves. And I can give them a cost category, and I can put in the start dates for these people as well. So let's say this person's going to work for the duration of the project as well. Maybe they're only doing 25% FTE, and I can put in a figure for their full economic cost. And I can go ahead and complete the cost form like so. And so the people that I that I add here in the resources and cost section won't be reverse reflected into your core team. Again, the core team section is the team of people that we want to that you want to be able to say these people are essential to the success of the project because of their track record, because of what they've done in the past and their expertise and that type of thing. Whereas the costs the people that we're putting in here, or that we might add as unnamed staff members, these people not adding I guess their expertise or their track record to give weight to the application itself. And then you can sort of mark that as complete and return.
Breakdown of costs.
So what we can see now is we've now completed our staff that belong to Zorg that are going to contribute to the costs of this grant proposal. And now I can start working through my other DA and DI costs and so forth. You can see that because we have already entered some information here, if I expand our directly allocated costs, we can see that the staff costs have pulled through here and that we've applied the standard FEC rate in this instance, and the staff costs have come through here for under directly allocated. We can now go and add some of the other directly allocated costs, such as estates. And so this will be a baseline cost that you'll get from your research office. I'll put a figure in here that I'll make up. And there might be other costs that are directly allocated that you'd need to add here as well. Now, the key difference between what we're asking for in the new funding service versus what you might be used to providing in JES is that we're not asking for a full breakdown of all your individual costs under each cost heading. And so what we're looking for are kind of totals. So let's go in and see an example of that. If I go into the directly incurred costs, again, we can see that the staff that we've already entered here for Zorg have come through. But what we're requesting here is a single cost for your equipment. Put a cost in there. Again, we would expect that you would be working very closely with your research officers to get your accurate costs here so that your proposal is costed. And so that you, if the grant is awarded, that you're receiving the money that you need to cover the cost of that project. Travel and subsistence, again, we're not asking for a breakdown of every trip or every flight or every train journey. We just need to see a total here. So we'll put a total in there and any other costs that might be incurred. And let's go ahead and do that for our indirects and exceptions. There are some things that are what we call exceptions, which are not subject to the 80% FEC rates. I'll talk about those shortly. We'll put some things in here and we'll just mark these as 0. And if I mark that as complete and return, what we can see now on our summary page is that Zorg have gone ahead and provided all of their costs.
Justification of resources.
So one of the key differences on the new funding service is around the justification of resources. So we're going to talk through that now. Previously, we have expected a justification to provide a justification of every individual line-by-line item that has been included in the JES cost form. We're not capturing a line-by-line breakdown of costs in our cost form in the new funding service, and neither do we need a line-by-line breakdown of your justifications of those costs. And that's a change to our policy and the way we look at costs, because what we're asking assessors to look at is more of an overall value for money assessment. We don't want assessors, or we don't feel it's in the best interest of the assessor's time to be looking at individual line-by-line breakdowns of individual costs. What we're really asking assessors to look at is, does this proposal provide value for money? So the assessors will be looking at the whole grant proposal, they'll be looking at the cost involved, and they'll be making a judgment as to whether this proposal represents value for money. What we do want you to call out in the justification is, as I said, the staff, why they're required. We're looking at significant travel for field work or collaboration. If there is perhaps a exceptional need for additional travel than what you might expect, then talk about that in your justification of resources and explain why that is necessary. If there is some expensive equipment that will cost more than £10,000, then that's the type of thing that we would like you to draw out in your justification. Again, we don't need you to draw out smaller items or stationery or anything small like that. If they're typical for this type of work, you don't need to call them out in your justification. Facilities and infrastructure costs, justify those. And any resources that have been costed as exceptions, we need you to justify those as well. And that's because only certain things are eligible as exceptions. And if you are found to be requesting things that are labeled as exceptions that are not eligible, then we might need to call you up on that, or we might need to adjust that if the grant is awarded. So overall, assessors want to be assured that the resources are appropriate to the work that's being done, and that the project will make the optimal use of resources to achieve its outcomes. And that's an overview of the key differences of how we're requesting resources and cost information on the new funding service.
If you have any questions or need more guidance, please go to the UKRI website and navigate to the How to Apply for Funding pages, where you can find further information and support. We have now reached the end of the resources and costs session, where Damien talked us through adding core team members, adding costs, unnamed staff members, breakdown of costs, and justification of resources. If you would like to view more information about the funding service, then view our website www.ukri.org as seen on screen here. For any queries or feedback, please contact the Funding Service Help Desk by emailing support@funding-service.ukri.org or by contacting the Help Desk 01793 547490.